Welcome, welcome! So we're going to be building a two-player chessboard with ReactJS, and we're going to be using two libraries, which is chessboard.jsx and chess.js. So let's just kind of have a little sample of how this is going to work. Let's go for the infamous Scholar's Mate. So they do something dumb, and then they put the horse there, and then checkmate, bam. So it's going to say game over, and you can click on play again, and then you can see it resets the game. Okay, so let's kind of go over the libraries really quick so we can have a better understanding. So yes, let's talk about chessboard.jsx first. It's actually inspired by chessboard.js, which is essentially just the UI and UX of the actual chessboard. So it shows the physical chessboard. Now, when it comes to validating the chess move and determining whether or not there's a draw, a stalemate, or a checkmate, that's kind of where chess.js comes in. And when you combine these two libraries together, you make some pretty cool chessboards. And again, I'm just going to give you guys a quick introduction. I'm not going to go in depth in their documentation. There's just a lot of things to go and cover. But just the gist to just build something like this. Okay? Wait, or is it this one? Oh, I guess I already reset it. Okay, well, let's get started with this. So here's my current code, and I'm just going to skip to a new code right here. So I will just turn this thing off right here. And we'll start with this one. So all this is I just did npx create React app. And I just put the code inside there. And this is going to be our starter template. Okay, so how exactly we're going to start this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to npm install a few libraries. We're going to need chessboard.jsx like I talked about, and then we need chess.js or chess.js, so don't forget that dot. We're going to click enter, and we're just going to wait for this thing to download. And while this is happening, we're just going to clear some things up because I don't want to overcomplicate anything. So get rid of everything except these files. So app.css, app.js, index.css, and then index.js. So just get rid of these. I need to use them later on, but I mean, I just want to show you I don't want any of these things to interfere. Okay, we're going to delete this as well. And we're going to make sure this is nice and clean. Getting rid of that logo. And I'm going to empty this tank out. And then, I think that's good. I'm going to go to my index.js. And I'm just going to delete this right here. And I'm going to delete that. All right, so yes, it is nice and clean and ready to go. And pretty much, while we wait for this library to download, am I missing anything? Okay, well, I'll just wait for this thing to finish loading, and then we'll continue building our app, because this is pretty much the bare bones we need, and then we'll get started hacking. Alright, so I successfully installed my chessboard.jsx and my chess.js libraries, and I did npm start, and it seems like nothing broke, so we are good to go. Alright, so let's get started by understanding how to read through the documentation. Now, the documentation is actually pretty easy to read because they organize it so well, but I just want to give you guys a few tips or a few directions to look at so you guys can end up building the application yourself. Because again, I'm only going through an introduction. There's a lot of things to go through, but I just want to give you guys the opportunity to just build a basic app. So let's first start with chessboard.jsx. Oops, not there. Chessboard.jsx. Okay, so if you go skip to the bottom, you can see I had a little sneak peek of it. This is where we're going to have all the instructions on using this component. They provide you the props, some basic examples, and even some sandbox where you can play around with it. So let's kind of jump to the action right now. So one of the things we can do, and I can just show you guys really quick, let's have a start position. So we're going to first import this. I'm going to say import chessboard from chessboard.jsx. All right, and then we're just going to input it right here, chessboard. And we're going to add the prop of position and, position of start. And if we look into our React application now, and make sure you capitalize all of it, by the way. And then if we look into our position right now, you're going to see that we have a nice looking chessboard that's fully functional. It's that easy. All right. And you're going to soon see that we're going to be able to make a lot of invalid moves. And that's kind of where chess.js comes in, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so you can see that it's extremely flexible. We're going to be later on talking about another props, which is going to allow us to determine how to move our pieces within the chessboard. Anyway, I want to make this look slightly better. So I'm just going to say const container. I'm just going to add a little style to this thing. So a margin top of 2 rem right here. And we're going to add a display of flex. And I believe it is a space around. Oops, sorry. It's going to be a justify content. You're going to soon find that CSS isn't really my groove, but this should be enough to make it look nice. I actually got this from the documentation when I was reading through it. Anyway, we're going to center that, and we're going to go through the style of this thing right here. And make sure you put this in brackets, or sorry, parentheses. And then you're going to see that we're able to center it, and it looks a lot better, like so. Right? That's not really part of this course, but I just wanted to make it look slightly better so we can see it a little bit easier. Okay, but anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about how exactly we're going to utilize this position. So there's this really interesting terminology that's called fan in chess, and all that does is it provides a string to a chessboard which will determine the position. Sounds weird, but let me explain. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import a state for this little guy. I'm going to just do this really quick. We're going to get a use state, and we're going to require that. Sorry, not require. We're going to get that from the React library. And I'm just going to put it right on the top. Const, and it's going to be called fan, and then we're going to say set fan. And we're going to have a use state of start, and then we can just simply put this fan inside here. Okay, so what exactly is fan? Why do I keep talking about it? Well, remember, fan is a string, and I can just show you in the documentation right here. You can say it says fan string. So essentially what you can do, and I already copied it right here so you guys can have a little sample of it, but you can see that you can provide a fan string, and you don't need to understand how to read it. Just know that it is a string that can be used to provide positions in a chessboard. So I can simply copy that right there, and I can set this right here, and you're going to soon see that we're going to have a instantly different position. And look at that, we do. And it's really hard to believe, right, that this string right here can give us these different positions, but there's actually a way to write it, and the reason why it shows up like this. But anyway, we don't need to know about this. Just know that a fan is going to be a string that we're going to input to our chessboard in order to bring up the position. So I guess you guys can kind of understand what we're going to be doing. Essentially, chess.js is going to consistently provide us a fan string that we can use, and then we're going to take that fan string and we're going to input it in the position so we can constantly change the chessboard position. Okay, so that's just a little sneak peek of what we're going to do. And in fact, we're actually going to start doing that right now. So I'm going to just set this back to start, and we're going to import this chess thing right here. So I'm going to import chess from chess.js, and we're going to start playing with this thing right here. And we're also going to need a few things. We're going to have to need use effect, and we're going to be using something called useRef. Basically, the gist of what you need to know what a useRef is that it allows us to define a variable in the functional component. It's a way for us to have mutable variables in our functional component. Okay, but just know we need to use that. I'm going pretty quick because I just want to get straight to the point, but feel free to research it on the React official documentation. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to instant this chess right there. So I'm going to be going up here, and I'm going to say let game equal to, so I'm going to give it a head start of useRef, and I'm just going to set it as null. Okay, so here's the really interesting thing about useRef. I'll just show it to you really quick. In fact, I actually just recently learned about it, so that's possibly one of the reasons why I don't want to talk too much about it. But the thing is that with useRef, it actually provides this game with a property called current. So if I open my inspec right here, you're going to notice that I get an object. So see that app.js line 19, and it provides me this object where I have this current property of null because I said it's null. And we're going to be using this to store our instance of this chess.js because it's going to be mutable, so we need to put it inside this useRef. Okay, so after that, we're going to have a nice looking use effect. Oops, use effect. And this is where we're going to input those changes inside there. So I'm going to simply say game, not just game, but game.current, because it's going to contain all that information right there. And then I'm going to simply say new chess, and that's all. And we can actually check it out what exactly it looks like now. So I'll just go inside here and I'll just print it out. Let's just print that. I'm just going to refresh this page really quick. And we should be seeing some changes. Oh, it's still null, and I think the reason for that is because we need to actually do some changes inside here at the meantime. But in the meantime, I'm going to add a bracket so it doesn't actually go too crazy. We just only want this thing to run one time. I think that's the reason why it's not working. So it's running one time now, and you can see that we actually have something inside our current right here. So you can see that this is actually coming from that chess.js, and it has all these different types of properties and methods that we can use. Like, for example, you can see it has a game over method to determine whether or not the game is over, and so on. And we're going to be using those logics real soon, and you're going to see how we're going to do it. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're pretty much, we're pretty much done with this. We just need to make one more function. So remember how I talked about how there's another props that we're going to be using, and that's what we call the onDrop. Okay, so it's called the onDrop prop. And essentially, this is a function that runs whenever we move a piece in chess, okay? So I'm just going to create this function really quick that we're going to use, and I'm going to define it at the top right here. Okay, so the thing about this onDrop is that because it's being passed as a prop, it's going to get some props as well. So inside here, we're going to have two things inside. We're going to actually receive something that's going to be called, and I believe is source square. And then the second thing we're going to get is something that's called target squared. All right, so these are the two things that we're going to be utilizing. And remember we have access to these different methods right here, so we're going to utilize that. So I'm going to simply go inside and create a variable called letMove. And I'm going to say game.current because I need to use that. And then I'm going to utilize their method, which if you look carefully inside here, I can't find it. Oh, there it goes. You see that move over there. We're going to use that function inside there, and we're going to have the ability to add some things inside. So remember, this source square and target square is actually coming from the chessboard.jsx. And then we're simply inputting these props inside the chess.js to check whether or not the move is valid or not. Okay, so there's two things we need to fill in. We got to fill in from, which we're going to use the source square. And then we're going to use to from the target square. So I just want to clarify because sometimes people get confused around this stage. Remember, the source square is where you start from, and then the target square is where you're planning to go. So really the purpose of this is that if I decide to move up 2, it's going to go through chess.js and it's going to determine whether or not that's valid. If I decide to move 3 moves down, it's going to return something that it is invalid, and then I'm not going to be able to do that move. Okay, so this is what's going to determine the move right here. And then check this out. This is going to be really interesting. I'm just going to console.log the move, and I want to show you how exactly this works. So if I move this right here, you're going to see that I get different types of moves. It doesn't put that there yet because we haven't changed the position of it quite yet, but you can see that we are able to obtain some sort of changes from there to there. But if I decided to move to a completely invalid place, like right here, it's going to return to me null. So what we can do is we can utilize this logic in order to determine if something is illegal. So let's do that. I'm going to go inside here, and I'm going to say that if the move equals to null, well, just simply return, because it's illegal, so I don't want them to do anything. Okay, hopefully that does make sense. And I'll just add a comment that this is here to check for illegal moves. Awesome. Okay, and now finally for the best part, this is where we're going to provide the fan string. Okay, so in the fan string right here, we're going to use the set fan, because remember we had that use state, and now we're going to need to change the position of it. So I'm going to be utilizing game.current, and now they have this nice looking method that I can use called .fan, which is going to produce the position as a fan string, which I can input inside here, which will output into this position, and we're going to get the chessboard position. Okay, so pretty cool so far. And if I refresh this, check this out. Now I should be, in case if there's any problems, I should be able to move this now. Look at that. Now I can move this, and if I decide to do something invalid like this, it's not going to let me. So black needs to move now. And you can see that now we're able to make legal moves within our chessboard game. So pretty cool. So like by itself, this actually works. And again, I'm going to do the Scholar's Mate just to prove my point again. Oops, let's do this. So currently right now, the board game works. It's checkmate. It doesn't show that, but you can see that black can't move anywhere because it's checkmate. It can't do anything. So what we need to do now is we can use one of the methods from the chess.js again to determine whether or not it is game over or not. Okay, so we're going to be moving into our last section. And this is just, pretty much you're done, so you can kind of get out of this video. But if you're interested in adding the game over functionality, then feel free to stay. Okay, so how exactly is this chessboard functionality going to work? Well, we're just going to add a ternary operator for this thing to function. Okay, so inside here, I'm just going to add a few things inside. What do I want to do? Well, I guess the first thing I want to do is determine whether or not the game is game over. So I'm going to use a ternary operator. I'm going to say if game.current. So I want to first check whether or not game.current has any value, because if it's null, then I can't do anything with it. And then I'm going to check. I'm going to check inside here whether game.current, and I'm going to be using the game over method right here. So this is going to determine, it's going to return a true or false of whether or not the game is over or not. Okay, so this is what's happening. If game.current exists and game.over says true, then we're going to reveal this type of information. Okay, so I'm just going to reveal a div inside here, and then we're going to reveal a span, because we don't want to show anything if it's not game over. And I'm just going to go inside here and just reveal a big fat game over. And I'm going to provide this div right here, just a simple style of, I think it was called text align. And I'm just going to center that. And I don't think it's, I don't think it's actually supposed to be around a string. Okay. But this is supposed to be a round string. Okay, but anyway, that's going to align the center. And you can see it's going to say game over. So pretty cool. And I can actually just simply take this out because it looks a lot better if it's on the top. I totally forgot that I made this as a flex. So I'm just going to move that to the top part. And we need to put this between these little brackets right here, I believe. All right, put that inside here, and then you're going to see that it's going to look slightly better. So let's just redo that one last time. I'm going to put that there, do the awesome Scholar's Mate, ba 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 ba, and it's going to say game over. And then what else we're going to try to do is we're going to add a button to reset it. So we're just going to say, let's make this nice and friendly. So we're going to say play again, play again. So you can see we have that button there, and we're going to add some functionalities inside here as well. So I'm going to add a onClick, and we're going to have this function called reset game. Okay, we're going to create that right now. Let's just do it right under here. So const reset game. And it's going to be very simple. We're just simply going to reset the game, and we're going to utilize that game stuff again. So we're going to say game that current. And we have two cool things we can do. We can clear the board right here. And then we can actually do game that current reset, which is going to reset the game. There we go. Now, what you're going to notice is that it's not going to reset it. Like, let me give you an example. If we move it like this, and I just want to achieve another checkmate so you can see as well. If I checkmate and I click play again, it's not going to do anything. But remember, chess.js does it in its own way. It doesn't do it on the actual board. It does it internally in its own system. So we actually need to clear it on chessboard.jsx as well. So a nice way to simply do this is go use that set fan, and then we're just going to simply set it back to start. That's all. So now you can see that we're going to get this thing to start now. So let's just do this one more time. And if you want to play chess, feel free to contact me. I don't mind playing a game at all. And game over, and we click play again, you're going to see it resets it. So yeah, that's pretty much all you need to do in order to build a two-player chess game. Yeah, so have fun with it. I didn't go over all the different types of functionalities, but just so you guys can understand the gist of this, remember the two libraries are chessboard.jsx and chess.js. Chessboard.jsx provides the physical look of it, and chess.js determines if whether or not the chess move is valid, and it determines whether or not there's a draw, stalemate, and checkmate. And pretty much what chessboard.jsx does is that provides you a position which you have to constantly add the fan string inside in order to see the different position changes within the game. So that's kind of where chess.js comes in. You can see that we use an on drop to determine the different moves that are being done and checking whether or not it's valid. We even created a simple if statement that determined if whether or not a move was illegal. And then we simply had the set fan and got the game that current.fan, which produced the fan string, which we simply inputted back into the position in order to see the new position. Okay, so you guys have fun. I'll see you in the next one.